Hello, everyone. Welcome to the world of Christine de Pizan. My name is Jennifer Winters, and I invite you to watch this video. And when you finish, please go back to the beginning. And as we go through the presentation, pause and look at all the information on each of the individual slides. For the interest of time, I am not going to cover everything that is on each slide. So let's start. So who was Christine de Pizan? Well, she was a writer in a time when women did not make a living from writing. In fact, she was credited as being, or she is credited as being, the first European woman to make a living as a writer. She grew up in a very tumultuous time during the Hundred Years' War, and she grew up on the front end of the Renaissance movement, which really had an impact on her philosophies. So think for a moment about the status of women during this time. Historical context and social context is very important to her story and her work. Women had very few rights as far as autonomy, economic status, property ownership. They were expected to be subordinate to men pretty much in all aspects of life. What about their education? Well, it really depended on your status, and it also depended on what your family wanted for you. So, upper class women like Christine did have some access to education, reading, writing, languages, but it really depended on what their fathers or male relatives wanted for them. Lower class women were probably more educated or tended to be more educated as far as trades, what their family did for a living. A lot of women worked in agriculture and had practical education in that. Of course, there were nuns in convents who maybe would have more access to education, but it was not equal at all. Some primary sources, just to give you a little bit of an idea about the attitude towards women. Thomas Aquinas wrote, "Woman is defective and misbegotten." Then we have Romance of the Rose, Roman de la Rose, which nature has made them to know very little. So that's what we were dealing with as women back in this time. So along comes Miss Christine. So Christine was an Italian-French writer born in Italy, then moved to France. Her father was the royal astrologer for the court of King Charles V. Her mother did not want her to be educated, but her father did. And he advocated for her to have the same classical education of the boys in the court. She was married at 15, widowed at 25. She didn't want to get married again. Alone am I, and alone I wish to be. So she needed to support her mother and three children. So she became a writer and a transcriber. Now, this is where we know about most of her philosophy. She believed in equality of education. This was extremely radical. The educational philosophy of the era was humanism, and she really believed in that, this right to a good humanistic education for women. But she also believed that we should have a practical education. City of Ladies, The City of the Ladies is her most well-known work. And in it, point by point, she refuted ideas back from what we mentioned earlier, the Romance of the Rose, about women's intellect. She believed that access to education for girls was a right, not a privilege. Now, not only did she believe in a classical education, humanist education, she believed in a practical education, which I would argue makes her a proto-progressive. She lamented that she did not know how to manage her husband's business dealings after he died because she just didn't have that practical education. So she called for an education that would be particular for the needs of the students. She believed that education was necessary for a strong society and that It was a right and not a privilege. And that was extremely, extremely radical. As far as her legacy goes, she was not appreciated for about 600 years after she died. She was respected by her contemporaries, but they saw her as an anomaly. They did not see her as representative of all women. And so, about 600 years later, is when she really started being studied as a proto feminist and as an educational philosopher, advocating for both an institutional humanist education and practical education. If you want to know more, check out some of the videos. I'll have one in the description. And thank you very much. Please go back and watch again.